One Piece chapter 1138 revealed all the story of the universe. Especially the last panel of this chapter is the most important panel of One Piece. The panel is called Harley, and in the first look, it looks very complicated and unclear. I read so many theories and explanations. I also made my own research in this video, and I'll be explaining to you guys what that panel actually tells us. And let me tell you, after this video, lots of things will make sense to you guys. Let me dive deeper and explain to you guys the importance of this panel. One chapter before, we had heard that the world was destroyed twice, probably once in Nika's era and once in Joy Boy's era. And this theory came out to be true. We witnessed the most important panel in One Piece history. I used the Manga Plus translation in this video. It's important to know that there are different translations in One Piece, because in Japanese language some words have more than one meaning. Let's look at the picture. Most likely the right side depicts the first world, while the left side represents the second world. And let's break down the words and images step by step. The first world represents the time before the Void Century. Within the earth there was fire. Mankind succumbed to greed and touched the forbidden sun. This phrase is very similar to something said in the Egghead Island. Vegapunk once mentioned committing a great sin in his pursuit of an infinite energy source. He said, "But in attempting this, I flew too close to the sun." Vegapunk also stated that the technology he discovered was inferior to the technology of the past. So that means in the first world, there was an infinite energy source found, which is the mother flame as we know today. But it was also considered a forbidden sin. Let's keep reading. The enslaved prayed, and the Sun God appeared. The Sun God mentioned in this first world was most definitely Nika. And as we heard from Who is Who, enslaved people used to pray to the Sun God Nika for freedom. So Nika during that era probably fought his enemies to free the slaves. The earth god raged, and with its serpent of hellfire, shrouded the world in death and darkness, and they will never meet. Here the god of earth is most likely Imu. The serpent of hellfire reminds me of the black flames seen in the Gorosei and the Holy Knights. Could these be the flames of hell? Perhaps the serpent of hellfire was actually the power of one of Imu's subordinates, similar to Gorosei. Looking at the images, both figures are attacking a common target. This strongly suggests that this hellish serpent was in red color, because once Elbaf warriors say, "Only thing we cannot pierce is the blood-red serpent." It's clear that this blood-red serpent is a character from Elbaf's mythology. This blood-red serpent resembles also the myth of Jormungandr. That's a serpent that brings about Ragnarok. It is said that Jormungandr also bites its own tail, and maybe the red line could be a reference to this. And more interesting is that this serpent looks like it comes out from a factory, which means this serpent might be artificial. At the end, the first world was destroyed, and they will never meet again. So I think Imu and Nika will never meet again. If you look at the picture, you can see some ancient people holding something. This is probably the Mother Flame. By the way, this panel looks very similar to the panel Enel had seen in the moon. In both panels there is a platform carrying people up and down, and also in both panels we can see technological stuff. So just like Vegapunk said, in ancient times the technology might be much more advanced than today. We can also see the moon in this panel. People somehow turn to Mother Flame, and Imu doesn't like this somehow, and the ancient people lose the infinite energy source. At that moment, the ancient weapon Uranus is used against Imu. I also guess the ancient weapon Uranus probably needed Mother Flame as an energy source. So this ship is probably Uranus, because it strikes Imu with a lightning. It also looks like the ship Enel built. And also when the ancient weapon was used in Lelucia, people saw black clouds in the sky. As you can see, this ancient weapon Uranus is destroyed by two of Imu's beasts, and it looks like Nika lost the battle in the first world. And let's go on to the second world. The second world is the Void Century. Within the void there was breath. The first world began with, within the earth there was fire, but this time the world is described as the void. This implies that the world had been destroyed once, but it says there was breath. This phrase reminded me of something Zoro said in Alabasta. Do you all remember the scene where Zoro cut Mr. One? Zoro told us he could hear the breathing rocks, trees and earth. So Zoro linked breath to willpower. This phrase might mean, in the void there was willpower. The forest god tamed demons, and the sun god spread fires of war. I think this might refer to the creation of devil fruits, which was done by the god of the forest. The god of the earth in the first world and the god of the forest in the second world were likely the same person. So Imu himself. When Imu first appeared, he was shown in the room of flowers, which looked like a forest. And the sun probably refers to the sun god of the second world. Joy Boy. He described as spreading the fire of war, which might surprise some, but looking at the images, we see Joy Boy waging war against Imu. Vegapunk even mentioned this before. We can see that the Minks, Elbaf warriors, Wano samurai, Alabasta kingdom, ancient giants, ancient robot, Poseidon, the Sea Kings, the ancient Lunarians, and the Tontattas, and much more allies all joined Joy Boy's alliance. Meanwhile, Imu holds a son, which is probably the mother flame from the first world, which people gave to Imu. It seems like Imu controls the Uranus this time, and we know he even used it on Lulusia. There is also a ship on his side. This might be a reference to the Marines and the kingdoms, which made the world government. Those of the half-moon dreamed. Those of the moon dreamed. Those of the moon are people with wings from the moon. But who are those of the half moon? There is a theory that claims those of the half moon are the people with the will of D. Almost all of the internet agree on this. I will explain that later on. And these people dreamed. And also don't forget what Marshall D. Teach, as known as Blackbeard, said. People's dreams never ends. Man killed the sun and became God, and the sea god stormed, and they will never meet again. So Joy Boy lost the war, and this also explains the celestial dragons. The celestial dragons are seen as gods, so they are human who became God. In other translations, it is also said that the sea god is furious. Could this refer to the devil fruits, which is hated by the sea? And Vegapunk also once stated that the devil fruits were created because of people's needs and dreams. So this might explain that the people of the moon and half moon dreamed. After that, Vegapunk also told us that the sea was furious because of that. And Shanks also tells us in episode 19 that whoever eats a devil fruit is hated by the devils of the sea. So in the second world, the devil fruits were created with the dreams of people, and that made the sea god furious. Exactly for this reason, devil fruit users can't swim. But of course, this could also mean the sinking of the world. We know that the sea levels rised so much after the Void Century. And now let's look at the third world. The third world is the present time. Within the chaos was emptiness. In the first world, the world was called the world. In the second world, it was called the void. And in the third world, it's called chaos. The inconvenient remnants recall the promised day and hear the voice of the half moon. I mean, the inconvenient remnant likely refers to Imu, who survived the war and is now anxious about the promised day. The voice of the half moon is very interesting. Most theories on the internet state that the half moon refers to the will of D, because the half moon looks like a D. We only see the half moon in the second and third world, which is the Void Century and the present day. We also know from Imu that the people of D are his enemies from the Void Century. Imu also tells us that he fought and beat lots of Ds, and today the will of D is nothing but an echo. And by the way, I also have to tell you that in some translations we can see the word echo instead of voice. So Imu means that people nowadays don't even know what D means. They are basically weakened, and that's why they are just an echo. But he still fears the will of D. I think this theory is very accurate. This also explains why Oda draw Luffy in the manga cover at the end of Skypiea with wings and one of his eyes closed, which refers to the half moon. The sun god dances and laughs, guiding the world to its end. The sun returns and brings a new morning, and they will surely meet. So we are told that a new sun will come and bring the dawn. This is definitely Luffy. Toki and Pedro always mentioned that the dawn will come. We can also see a big difference in this script. This script ends with they will meet, which was not the case in the first two worlds. Who will meet and why will they meet? I think the Sea Kings give us some answers about this. They tell us that their sovereign is to be born, and the whales are delighted in anticipation of the day the two sovereigns shall meet again. The time has almost come, and this time everything will go accordingly. I want to take a look at the panel here again. Interestingly, we don't see Pluto and Zoo in this panel, I thought. But if you look closer, we can see they might be hiding somewhere in this panel. Pluto can be this whale, because we saw a whale tree in Zoo. And we also know that only Zoo can bring Pluto back. And also don't forget that Laboon was also a whale, which was modified. Actually, Zoo is also hidden in this picture. Look at Imu here, for example. We can see Imu clearly stands on an elephant, which is Zunisha. We can also see Imu holding the paddles, which means he probably controlled Zunisha. We can also see there is a ship in Zunisha, which looks like Noah's Ark with different kinds of animals and people. I'm almost certain that this ship is the Noah we saw in Fishman Island. So Zunisha maybe had the job to carry these livings. but he was tricked by Imu and most of the creatures died. There might even be a genocide happened there, and that's the big sin Zou have committed. Exactly because of this reason were Roger, Oden, Momonosuke and Luffy uncomfortable in Zou, because they could hear Zou's voice. Zou holds a voice of great genocide. Alternatively, we can also see that the slaves from the first world, which gave Imu the Mother Flame, are 19 people. We know that Imu made an alliance with 20 kingdoms, but that was reduced to 19 because of Alabasta treason. And if you ask me, this here could be Nika himself, who stands above the people in Noah. But I'm not exactly sure about this, because we know that Nika was a giant, so she actually shouldn't have wings. So this creature with wings can also be someone from the moon. But it looks like this character protects those people while these beasts above fight and destroy the world. In my theory, Nika was probably a savior who guided the normal people and slaves to the second world with the help of this ship Noah. As you guys can see, there are lots of interpretations about this topic, and I'm sure in the next weeks we will see much more different explanations for this panel. But I tried to sum up the most important ones, or the most accurate ones for me. If you watched until now, please subscribe to my channel and like this video. And also don't forget to comment down what kind of topics or One Piece characters you want me to talk about. I hope you enjoyed this video and see you next time.